it. All right. It says here we're live.
As long as that box in the upper red is ticking, we're
live.
on.
Yeah.
I'm going to refresh it over here. I just want to make sure we're good to go. Let's see here. All right, dudes. Yeah, we're live. All right, we did it.
Let's go.
All right,
Way to
let's
go,
go.
David.
Yeah, guys. So this is our first live event with the Apogee Fitness Podcast, and super excited to have you guys on it. Kind of honored. We got J.R. Howell back on the podcast. It's been a minute since he's been on our podcast. And then we've got Rick Jones, and it's been even longer
It
since
has.
he's been on our podcast.
It's been a while, man.
It's been super long. So I was actually doing some notes. I was kind of looking back and seeing, Rick, you were on first. Did you know that?
Between me and JR?
Yeah, between you and JR. Yeah.
I knew that.
You were on here April 21st, 2021.
Wow.
And JR was May 12th, shortly after 2021. So a lot has happened in the last year and a half since then.
For
and
sure.
I really want to dig into it. Also, Zach, what's up, buddy?
Hi, how's it going? No, don't forget me.
Good, dude. I heard you had a big debut this morning. Is that true? Was today the debut? I knew you were coaching this morning.
Yeah, sure. The first standalone where JR wasn't there, but yeah.
Holding your hand.
He's a natural. He's a pro. I didn't need to check in on him.
Good.
No one died. We're good.
That's good. That's always a plus. So, real quick, before we get started on the topic, I was thinking about something this morning. Obviously, I was sitting there with my kid, and I thought of something that he said a couple weeks ago at the breakfast table. And JR, you might be able to relate to this.
Okay.
So you've got a 4-year-old daughter now, correct? 4 years old?
Correct.
My son, Riggs, he's 5. So he's sitting at the breakfast table. He's eating his eggs. And it's kind of cool at the age of 4 or 5. You kind of start to see like this transition of this kid who's just relying on you for everything. Around 4 or 5 years old, they start taking these ideas, and in their little minds, they're putting like them together. 1 and 1 makes 2, and this is going to happen. So my little son, he's sitting there at the breakfast table, and he looks up at me and he goes, "Dad, I think I'm going to start eating Frosted Flakes." And I'm like, "Why would you start eating Frosted Flakes? Those eggs look delicious," because he's sitting there eating his eggs. And he kind of looks at me again and he goes, "Well, tigers are super strong. They're super fast. They're really athletic, and they hunt really good." And I was like, "Tigers hunt really good?" Oh, because there's a tiger on the box of Frosted Flakes, And in his mind, he's like, "Yeah, of course. I'm going to eat Frosted Flakes because I'm going to be like that." It's kind of funny to see that. And I don't know, JR, if you can relate to that at all with Lilia turning 4 years old and having these abstract ideas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like 100%. She, we'll see something on YouTube or like a Katy Perry video, like where has a bunch of tigers and stuff, and then she'll automatically say that she's a tiger, and because tigers are scary, and she wants to be a tiger for Halloween, and she don't call her tiger, call her cheetah cat, and just one thing builds off the other.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy, man. I had this one more story because kids are brilliant, man. It's like I said, at this age, it's hilarious to see them kind of just have these ideas. Like my kid, we were at the lake house a couple months ago, and we're done playing in the water for a little bit, come inside, eat lunch. And my kid wants to play hide and seek. So naturally, all the kids that are there, we're inside. We're like, all right, let's play some hide and seek. Now, this house that we're at, it has a deck all around it, like an outdoor deck with like glass sliding doors all the way around it, right? And the base, we don't play that hide and seek where it's like, "Oh, I see you," and like, you're out. Like you see them, then you have to go tag them and chase them, right? So my 3-year-old Saxon, he's up to count, and he's sitting at the couch, and he doesn't have any trouble counting, but he has issues keeping his eyes closed, right? So I'm kind of sitting there with him, making sure he keeps his eyes closed. And my 5-year-old, the couch is right next to one of the sliding glass doors. So starts counting, opens up the sliding glass door, slips out, shuts it quietly behind him, and just stands there. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, I know exactly what he's going to do. So he's just standing there waiting for Saxon to get done counting. And so Saxon gets done counting, opens his eyes. The first thing he does is look around and he sees his brother right there. And he lunges after him to try to tag him, not realizing there's a crystal clear glass door right there. It's like my 5-year-old just set him up. So my kid just face plants into that glass. It was savage, dude. And it's like, what 5-year-old thinks? It's just crazy to see how they start acting and putting these ideas together. And so I don't know, man. It's just fun having kids, and they just take a lot of work, which is probably one of the reasons I haven't been at the gym too much lately. But let's talk a little bit about the gym. So we've got, like I said, Rick Jones, JR Howell, CrossFit Crash, and you guys go back a long ways. Rick, when did you join the gym officially?
Ooh, that's a good question. What was it, JR? It was like 2016 maybe, or maybe just before that.
Yeah, 15 or 16.
I think it was 15 or 16. We had built this really cool gym at work, and so I was working out there, and I think me and Will Humphreys were like doing a partner workout, and I think Will was at the time going to Crash already, and I think he like convinced me to come check it out. So I think that was when I started. It's been so long ago, it's hard to remember when that actually happened, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. And then JR, at what point did you take ownership of the gym again?
We started in like February or March of 2015.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we kind of were talking about this earlier, but one of the reasons I wanted to have both of you guys on at the same time, especially for our first live show, is because I think it would be kind of cool to talk a little bit how you guys collaborated in like the 2018, 2019 time period. Really bring videos to Instagram. So like prior to really early 2020, late 2019, Reels wasn't really a thing yet on Instagram. And Rick, you would bring your camera to the gym and start making these videos and putting them on Instagram. And I think like instantly people kind of gravitated towards that because it was so much more cooler than just like a picture, which is all Instagram was really up to that point. And so I was wondering if you guys could just kind of expound a little bit upon that. Like, Rick, I know that at that point it was just a hobby and you were using an iPhone, right? Yeah. And JR, what were you thinking? Were you like, all right, yeah, you can go ahead and try this out, see what happens, have fun with it? Or were you like, man, this might be actually a cool way to start promoting my gym?
No, actually, I was extremely reluctant to tell Rick to just do whatever he wanted because I have never really been someone that wanted a camera around. So I found it hard to believe that anyone would care about what we were doing in the gym from the outside, or that, I mean, I kind of underestimate how much people enjoy pictures of themselves, videos of themselves, looking cool, working out, all that kind of stuff, because it's just not something that I enjoy. So I remember him bringing it in and kind of just walking around, and I just felt like what is he doing? What's going on? No one's gonna. I don't get it. And actually, one of my first memories of him using it was for Be More Athletic Friday. So we used to do something on Fridays at the old gym that I kind of like to do to bring people back to their roots of like childhood, playing sports, climbing over something, having fast feet, like agility ladders, really like sprint style intervals, but with no CrossFit movements at all. Like maybe 10 jumping air squats into a like side shuffle, like shuttle run, and then 3 or 4 burpee get over the boxes, and then put on a sled and pull a tire as fast as you can to the end of the road, and then run to the back of the building and do a fast sled push. So it was very different. I mean, people dug it back then. I think as time went on, I think people it kind of became one of those things where I'm too old for this kind of stuff. I'm embarrassed when I can't do things, or Rick always has the camera. I don't want to look silly on camera, which people need to understand. Rick will never not make you look good on camera.
Right.
So,
Correct.
yeah, that's some of my first memories of it. And then from then on, you know, I would get used to seeing things on Instagram, and then I noticed that the engagement and the likes were way, way more with stuff like that than with pictures. Like
Right.
no one cares about seeing the picture of like a picture of a workout. And I mean, up until this past year, that's all I would post. Is just post the workout. I wouldn't even post a picture on the slide before it. And even doing that just makes everything look so much more professional. And 90% of the pictures that are posted are from Rick too. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, I have him to thank for the growth of the gym from the old location. And then when we moved to the new location, he started the YouTube channel, and he posted a video of people cleaning up that space with mops and with pressure washers and all that. I need to repost that video because we just came up over the 2-year anniversary in May of moving into that space. And a lot of those pictures came up on my timeline, and it's crazy what that place looked like. And he captured all that stuff.
Yeah, that's super rewarding, and it's special.
I mean, how does that initial conversation go? Hey, I'm kind of getting into this hobby of like film. I think this would be a good spot to start. Or like, how do you get that information through that that's something you want to do?
So I'll jump in because I probably didn't really have much of a conversation. I just showed up with a phone and a gimbal
For sure.
and just started doing my thing. And I was like, well, if it's a problem, he'll tell me. And so I just went with it. And I mean, like, I think the coolest part about the story is that it was an iPhone, which looking back is super wild. But I think at the time, like, iPhones are something that just about everybody who has a phone, they have an iPhone. So it's a little bit less like off-putting when you see somebody with the phone because you just don't take it serious because it is an iPhone. So I think that helped. If I would have came in day one with like this massive camera and all these huge lenses and like professional gimbals, I think everybody would have been like, who is this dude? But I think what maybe helped a little bit more too is that like Crash is home. And for people who may only see the content, they may not put two and two together because they just don't have the backstory to know that I was working out at Crash as an athlete before really even coming in with the camera. And so it ended up being this really unique sort of pairing of progress, I guess, JR having his own vision of the gym and like going super hard with that. And then me finding this passion for filmmaking and then specifically in the CrossFit space. So it was immediate to, at least to me, the potential that we had as both of our goals were sort of going in parallel. And honestly, I think this may be the first time JR and I really sat down and talked about like everything that's like really happened. It just was, at least in my eyes, super organic how it went from, you know, Crash 1.0 to, you know, what we're doing these days. So to answer your question, there really wasn't much of a conversation. I think we just both, you know, took
Mutual
a little
understanding.
leap and mutual unsaid understanding. And I think JR grew to trust me with, you know, not like you said earlier, like I don't want to put out bad content of anybody. So I think that's something you have to sort of earn. So after that, I think it was a little bit easier to bring in the camera. And then to athletes, if they know that they're more than likely going to look really cool, they're not if anything, I get the best effort from everybody whenever I'm walking around with their camera, with the camera. Their face gets super like intense and they're like, they'll be dead
That's
after I
facts,
walk
though.
away
That's
just
true.
so they
I
can
mean,
like
I've
get
experienced it.
a good shot. So yeah.
Now,
For
is like CrossFit and fitness kind of like what led you kind of get into like the videography and like documenting of all that, or was that always a hobby you've had prior to?
So I've always been better at like creativity type, you know, hobbies than like sports themselves. So like I was really into music, recording music, and that's still kind of like a first love as far as like creative outlets. And then you know, filmmaking was something that I was really I guess intrigued by. And then I learned that people were doing it on their phone, and so that was a whole rabbit hole of just learning about it. And then the question came of like, well, I can do this and learn myself. Where am I spending a lot of my time outside of work? And that was the gym. And so, to your point earlier, David, like that wasn't something you saw a lot of. So me, luckily at the time, wanted to try to capture some of that essence of the community. And so it worked out really well as far as allowing me to find or better yet, connect two passions of I have CrossFit that I love. I've been doing it at the time like 3 years by that point. And then videography, which is something I'm discovering, but I can bring these together and sort of, make them work together, which was super cool. So
Yeah, I love it, man. I feel like it all just kind of happened at the same time, right? You guys started kind of doing your video thing. We started kind of doing this podcast. And then, we had you guys on the podcast. And it was so funny. I was, like I said, I was thinking about it earlier today. And Rick, when we had you on the podcast, we were kind of talking about what you were just saying. And you were like, man, and every video I do, I tag the Buttery Bros in. I'm sure they don't see it, though. And now we hear like a year and a half later, and you've done like what, 4 or 5 productions with them?
yeah. Yeah, I thought about that earlier when I was getting ready, thinking about some of the stuff we talk about. And I was thinking back to our podcast and I was like, man, yeah, at that time it was like I would love to meet the Buttery Bros. I hope to, like get to talk to them or whatever. And then I guess by that point it was shortly after that I went to the games with them for 2021, went to Waterpalooza with them, went back to the games this past year. So that in the past year I've done 3 or 4 events with them, and like not small events either, so pretty big deal things. So that's like super surreal, like it's unbelievable.
That's awesome. So, and then JR, when you were on, Crucible had happened just a few months before, and I think you were pretty surprised and kind of overwhelmed at that point at how well that competition went, especially in the midst of COVID, right in the thick of it.
Yeah, that was actually 2020. So that's how long that's been. That was 2020.
Right. So that was like what, fall of 2020, and then you were on spring of 21. So it was only a few months before that. And so, and then we've had Crucible again since then. You've been at the CrossFit Games, and then you've been on Savant's podcast quite a bit lately too. So a lot has happened with you in the last year and a half.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's really important to point out, especially when reminiscing about the fact that Rick and I have never actually talked about what we've done. We've just done it and just let everything happen. I think that's the best way to do things like this, and the way that they're going to grow is if you're not trying to force it. It was very organic. Rick has a passion. He decided to like explore it. I was just like, I'm not going to get in your way. Do what you want. And in the same way, he wasn't like, hey, I need you to program these workouts because I think these movements would give me the best content that I need. It was just like, hey, I'm going to show up and film some stuff today. And it was like, okay, cool. And then, it was like, I just want to put on a really big event and make it as good as I can. And I decided to take a risk during COVID and do it when no one else wanted to do it, and ended up doing as good as it could have. And then things just kind of happen, and you get momentum, and anything in life, you just need to ride that wave and just keep going. When people are trying to help you and when opportunities present themselves, you're probably not going to get them again. So really try to be on the lookout for stuff like that. And help people that want to help you. I guess that's my advice to anybody, is treat others the way you want to be treated, and it will never end up bad.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things I say to young people. I hear it all the time. They look at maybe success and they're like, man, that person got really lucky, or man, it must be nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, I'm like, it's not luck. It must be nice. People get in situations because they put themselves in situations and they see an opportunity and they take it and they run with it. I see a situation that I want to be in. I'm going to put myself there and see what happens. And I think that's exactly kind of how things have blown up around in the upstate. So talk about, Rick, when the Buttery Bros actually did come to town, right? They came to film Jason.
Yeah.
They contacted you before they actually came, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So talk about getting that DM.
So, all right. It starts off with like, I was a huge Buttery Bro fan, and I think they probably don't get like enough credit for the content that they put out during the pandemic, because I think, like, at least for me, everybody's sitting at home, like you can't really do much, like even the gyms are shut down, so you're like watching YouTube or whatever. And so for me, I watched a lot of the Buttery Bros. So that was always something that was a goal. But when Jason won the MAC, and you kind of see him blowing up at the same time, which is also really cool to think about in comparison to, or in correlation with everybody else's growth. But he blows up right around this time. I'm not shooting on my iPhone anymore, and me and Jason get together. We start putting out content, and so when they hit me up, I was actually on my way to work, and I was looking at Instagram at a red light. Of course, I wasn't texting and driving or anything like that. But I see that I had a message request and it said Buttery Bros. Now, like, I had like a little moment of freak out. Like, I can't lie. Like, I can't fake
Sure.
like I wasn't stoked. But basically, they was like, "Yo, what up, dude? You make sick content. We're coming down. You free?" Like, they're super short, so it's not really like much like of a setup. It's just like,
Sure.
"Yo, your stuff's sick. We're gonna be in town. Can you like come hang?" And I was like, absolutely. When are you coming? So
But that's the
that
energy
was,
you get from them on camera too, it feels like.
say that again.
That's the energy you get from them on camera too, it feels like it just burst.
It is for sure. And it's a lot, it's like very high level energy too when you do get it. So that was a super cool experience, but at the same time, I was so nervous. Like, I was freaking out because I guess these are guys you looked up to, not only like just in not necessarily CrossFit, but just in the space of creativity and what they've done. And at this point, they filmed all the documentaries. So for me, it's like from a filmmaking and CrossFit standpoint, like these are like, you know, lack of a better term, like CrossFit royalty as far as filmmaking. So you automatically respect these guys for what they do. So it was I put a lot of pressure on myself to like come out and perform and like do all these different things. And they were just super chill about it. So I didn't really need to overthink it as much as I did, but it was definitely something that, I had to process for a minute. Like, I got the
Sure.
message from the Buttery Bros, and then they like follow me, and then Heber messages me. It happened so fast that I had to kind of step back and be like, man, like this is a kind of a dream come true, as weird as that sounds. Like, I mean, it's the Buttery Bros, but for me as a filmmaker in CrossFit, it was a huge deal. So there was a period of time where I had to just process the fact that like they're coming down, they hit me up, they've seen my stuff, and they like it. So that was super cool.
Yeah, definitely. And then JR, being Jason's workout buddy for the year, him crushing the MAC, being super proud of him, and then him kind of blowing up in the following months, and then having all this media attention towards your gym. What did you think about that? I know when you first came on our podcast, that was the first time you'd ever been behind a microphone. And I remember how nervous you were just sitting there with us. And then all of a sudden, this limelight is kind of on your gym. So what did you think about all that?
Yeah, I really tried not to think about it too much. When Rick told me they were coming, I think the first thing I said was, "Well, let me know when they're going to be here because I don't want to be there." Like,
That's true.
like
That's a true statement.
like
Max, I believe that.
They're coming to shoot Jason. They're coming to get content. They're coming to hang out. And like I've still had Lily at the time, who was still really young, and I was in and out of the gym coaching. And Rick was like, "Dude, you need to at least like be around some to be in the videos." And I'm like, I don't care about that. If I'm gonna be there to be in the video, it's just gonna be because I'm getting a workout in, and that's it. So I would rather Rick, Zach was in some of the stuff, Jason, obviously, and then any of the members that happened to be in the gym. One thing I did was not post about it when they said they were coming. I wanted to make sure that I was respectful of, someone like Jason trying to get ready for the games. It's still a training session for him, and to respect the Buttery Bros time, because I know that whenever they make appearances, everyone shows up so that they can take pictures with them, or so that maybe they can sneak into the video, and they're there to work too. So it was very just, if you happen to go to the noon class and you walked in the gym, you were like, wait a minute, is that the Buttery Bros?
Right.
And then,
for sure.
Of course, I caught a lot of flack afterwards. Like, why didn't you tell us? We would have just came up there. Well, that's exactly why I didn't.
Right.
Because
No, they were just dropping in.
I didn't want it to be like that. I just wanted it to be, I wanted them to be able to train if they wanted to train, because they typically will train with the people that they're shooting and not have to worry about being interrupted to take pictures or whatever. And I know they embrace that and they love it and they appreciate their fans, but at the same time, I didn't want it to be about anything other than what they were coming there for.
For sure. All right, so let's move along a little bit. So you actually qualified for the CrossFit Games, and we talked about this in another episode, your experience there and all that. But talk about meeting some of these people that you've connected with and kept in connection with, such as like Brian, right? That's where your guys' friendship kind of kindled. You guys met, you guys became bros, kind of hit it off. And next thing you know, he's in South Carolina for competing at the Crescendo. So talk about how that all went down on your end.
Yeah, my relationship with Brian actually started long before that, shortly after Crucible 2020, when, you know, Jason won, Josh Miller was second, Berman was third, Taylor Self was fourth. You know, like Kyle Bernier, Mark Hutchinson, like a lot of really, really high level guys who ended up qualifying for semifinals were there. And Brian, being the analyst and being the like journalist that he is, saw that Jason showed up at the MAC, beat everybody, and looked into his competition history the following year. So we're like, where did this dude come from? And I think he had a relationship with Jake Berman. And so he reached out to Jake and said, who is this dude that beat you at this local competition? And he's like, oh yeah, his name's Jason. He's actually really good. Like, be on the lookout for him. And so leading up to the semifinals prediction stuff that he does, where he ranks everyone and puts who he thinks is going to qualify, he put Jason in there. And everyone was like, who is this dude? There's no way this kid's going to qualify. I think he put him in fifth. And he was like, well, I talked to this guy who runs this competition who had Jason there and who won against all these semifinals level athletes and regional perennial athletes. I'm going to take his advice and trust him that he is really good. And then he ends up winning the MAC. And so at that point, Brian, I guess, trusts me that when I give him information, it's not just me talking, that there's something behind it. And from then on, we just developed a cool friendship. I mean, we're both very much nerds of CrossFit, and we both love to analyze programming and athlete mindset and performance and all that kind of stuff. So that just kind of started a friendship. And now, I mean, we talk almost daily. So,
yeah, I mean, nerds love nerds. All right. So let's talk about this year's Crucible. So we've got it coming up pretty soon here. And it's kind of weird. I'm looking at some of the you've released, I think, pretty much the entire female field, and this is by far the most strong female field you've had at Crucible since it started. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think if you put both fields together from years 1 and 2 and combined any competitors that didn't overlap, I don't even know if we would have a field of 30, much less to have over half of them having qualified for a regionals or a semifinal or a sanctional. And that's kind of where we're at now, the female field. And I was so happy and proud to showcase them when I started making athlete announcements, because the field that is coming this year is stronger than the male field, like depth and probably like star power at the top. I mean, and that's not a knock at the guys, because there's 10 to 15 semifinalists there too. But athletes like Danielle and Shaylin deciding to do individual and not go team was like huge. It really, really bolstered that field. So I'm so excited. My fingers are crossed that everyone shows up, because even last year I had a couple semifinal levels athletes that pulled out 2 days before, you know, and that, not only from a logistical standpoint, you have the heat schedules made and you have the athletes kind of ranked and all that stuff. So you try to make sure that the heats reflect the level of competitor. And then that happens, you have open lanes, and, you know, I'm all about just it being as professional looking as possible and having full heats and equipment not being used, just that it doesn't look as good. So I haven't heard any, knock on wood, that are not going to be able to show. And I think that I go back to Rick, but it's true. You know, if I was just posting screenshots of old workouts or pictures of the gym saying, come compete here, it just doesn't get that much steam. But I mean, when you have a video with Marquand in it and with Michelle Bazin in it and with these household names that people really know, and they're like, whoa, what, like this thing really must be legit. And then when you look into it a little bit more and you see videos and you look at athlete rosters, I mean, Luke decided to come last minute. Initially, he told me he wasn't going to be able to compete this year. He messaged me and said, "Hey, dude, do you have any more spots?" And it just so happened that a couple athletes had to pull out last minute. So I was able to get Luke in, which is awesome. It's his third year in a row. He just finished fourth at the games on Mayhem. So having him and Alexis both here this year is super cool.
Now, would you attribute any of that to the legitimacy of that with having a qualifier, and they start to see that too, and they see like how serious you're taking that and what direction you're taking that event?
Yeah, I definitely think that the qualifier was a step in the right direction. It just so happened that the number in my head, the 30 number, ended up allowing for more males to get in, which is great. I mean, I'm happy. I wish everyone could get in to the actual competition. But last year, I mean, if I would have just said anyone can sign up, and I would have said, hey, I'm going to give 15 invites and then 15 spots, first come, first serve. I mean, within 5 minutes, they would have been taken. And there's no way to screen those athletes. And when you have guys like Jason and Taylor who have won it the past 2 years, Jacob Pfaff, Mark Hutchinson, I already mentioned the podium from the first year. When you have guys like that and you have another heat of semifinals level athletes, and of course, you're going to see a little bit of drop off. You see that at semifinals. The last heat and the first heat are not the same level of athlete, but you still want to preserve that depth of field, and you don't want people to come to compete there that really don't know what they're getting themselves into. And unfortunately, I think that has happened in the past where, hey, it's a local competition. I live an hour away. I would love to do it. Why wouldn't I want to compete against Jason? Why wouldn't I want to compete against these guys like Hudson that I've been watching for years? And that's awesome. But then when you get into a situation where the lights are on and everyone's watching and you can't do a movement and everyone else around you is, I don't want to put anyone in that situation.
Sure.
Right.
So it's almost just a way to make sure that the people who are coming there to compete are the people that can keep the leaderboard honest. I think that's the easiest way I can put it, because if you have athlete 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th that can finish top 10 on one of the workouts, that's what you want, because it keeps those guys at the top honest. And if there's something they're not good at, they get punished for it.
For sure. And then you decided to put the teams to teams of 4 this year instead of teams of 2 like last year. What was the reasoning behind that? Just because that's what it is in semifinals and CrossFit games?
Yeah, I knew there was a good opportunity to get some teams that maybe barely missed out on the games. I mean, which is most teams, right? It's a very small number that get to go, but that still want an off-season competition that they know is going to be high level. They know they're going to have implements tested like the worm or, legless rope climbs or whatever, things that maybe they did at semifinals and it kind of exposed certain team members. They want an opportunity to do that in another live setting against live competition. And finding a male, female competition for most athletes locally is difficult. So instead of doing male, female after Crescendo, which, we had a few teams pull out last minute, but we still had a strong field. I mean, 2 of the teams that came to Crescendo qualified for the games.
Right.
So talking to them at Crescendo and saying, hey, listen, guys, if I make it male, female this fall, are you guys in? And they all said, oh, absolutely. We would so much rather do that. So, I mean, I would have been happy with just one full heat. We've got 9 teams signed up, and sure, I wish it was 12 or 18. I wish we had 3 full heats of teams, but this is my first year doing it in the fall, and I only think that it'll grow from here. I'm offering good cash, and we've got some good high level athletes coming to do it. So I think that the carpet will match the drapes as far as the elite teams and the elite individuals.
Yeah, dude, that cash money talk. So what is the prize?
So I know we posted something about the purse being in excess of 20 grand. It's actually 25 grand. So that's what you can look forward to.
Oh, Rick threw in that extra $5,000, huh?
Right. Yeah. That's what Rick.
Oh, Rick.
Some light for the squad,
It's no big deal, dude. Well, that's fun, man. I'm super excited about it. All right, JR, I got to ask you, man. So I remember we had this conversation when we had that podcast with Hans Molenkamp. And afterwards, you were like, yeah, Hans is saying that I really need to. I don't like being in the limelight. I don't like being on social media or, my face behind the camera or even my voice. But I really think I need to kind of get more involved in that. And then next thing you know, you're going on Sevon's podcast. So talk a little bit about that, man. How's that experience been for you?
It's been awesome. Actually, you can probably go back and find this on YouTube, but the first time I ever did anything like that was on Morning Chalk Up. I did a bottom line with Brian. My computer was having difficulty. I had to hold my iPhone. Everyone in the comments roasted me, saying that I was texting the whole time, that
Yeah, he
my
was getting
signal
killed.
was spotty. It was like I was up till midnight, 1 a.m, responding to every comment, apologizing that I didn't do that purposefully. And then a couple of days later, Sevon was like, "Hey Brian, get him on. Like let's see what he can bring to the table." And when I got on there, the first show, that he spent the first 5 minutes making fun of me like he does most people.
Of course.
And it looking back on kind of how the first couple shows went and then how they are now conducted, yeah, it's less skill like anything else. And if you don't practice doing it, you're not going to get good at it. So
sure.
If I wasn't just going on talking about something that I was passionate about, I wouldn't still be doing it and I wouldn't enjoy it, because I still don't like looking at the screen and seeing myself talk. But like I told people after the predictions episode, if I wouldn't have told a YouTube channel, I would have told Zach and Rick and you and people at the gym, and they're like, "What do you think's coming at the games?" I've been like, "Oh, dude, I think they're actually going to do a press to handstand this year." No, they're not going to do that. No, for real, for real. Look. Like, look at all these articles. Look at all these things I found. I would still be doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I would just be telling people who I see every day and not strangers. So.
And what kind of attention did that draw? Speaking to like how you broke down that prediction show, what did that look like afterwards? Were you having a lot of people reach out like, who's your insider?
No, actually, I had no one do that, but I did have people just that were strangers say, "Hey, dude, I really appreciate your insight, and I'm really loving the predictions." And then some people would just DM me and say, "Broken clocks right twice a day," and I love that because that's kind of like my thing, that I like to say when I get lucky about whatever, whether it be like a workout or saying that I think they'll do seated legless rope climbs. And then unfortunately we didn't get to see that, but you throw what noodles on the wall enough times, one or two are going to stick. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the things I love seeing the most this year at the CrossFit Games was bringing single unders. So I've been saying that for a year. I'm like, get these guys doing single unders. I mean, how many times do we do single unders in a workout? Hardly ever. Have you tried? I mean, a lot of people at home, since watching the games, they've probably been like, dang, yeah, it's probably been like 2 or 3 years since I've tried single unders, and going from double unders to single unders is a big deal. And then also going from single unders straight to double unders is a huge mind F when you're trying to put that together, right, in a workout. So, and then I thought that workout was amazing. I loved it. I wasn't a huge fan of the crossover jump rope, but other than that, it was great, because I would have liked to see them progress a little bit farther past the jump rope in that third round. So, my 2 cents.
I agree with you.
yeah,
All
what do
right.
you I actually wanted to make sure everyone knows that Zach is competing. So kind of how team training's been going, how anxious are you to see what you're going to have to do? I mean, our plan, Rick and I's plan is to make sure that all workouts are out no later than a week prior to competition. So that means we could start to trickle them out earlier, but the plan right now is a week in advance. So where's y'all's training at and how do you feel? Obviously there is a little bit of an advantage training at the host gym. You have access to equipment that maybe other athletes don't have. And even if they do have access to it, it doesn't feel the same. The way the bars feel on the pull-up rig. The way the pegs feel on the pegboard. The way the turf feels to push a sled on it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the team side's kind of a unique dynamic too, because we can practice all those implements we want as individuals and be confident in it. And, we've seen it at the games before where certain movements can, hinder someone's movement going forward, especially as a team, because you're relying on others as well. I think between the four of us, Adam, Jen, and Kara, and myself, we've come up with enough ideas and trying to think something that you'd put in front of us and be as creative as we can and try to get our hands on something different each week. And it definitely helps having access to stuff that a lot of gyms don't. And so you feel more confident when you go into stuff, for sure, regardless of what's thrown at you, just because of how we get tested every week.
Yeah, and that's something that I almost saw more so as a professional courtesy. And this Crash Crucible isn't the CrossFit Games, and unknown and unknowable, I think in a lot of ways should be reserved for the athletes of that caliber on that stage. So not telling anyone anything until a week before doesn't set anyone up for success in a performance standpoint. Because if I know that there are certain niche things that some athletes don't have access to, I'm not going to say, well, tough, you can drive 3 hours and use a pegboard, or, if you're going to have to swim, you should probably be swimming beforehand. I don't want any team to not be able to complete an event just because they didn't know that a certain somewhat nuanced movement was going to be tested. So telling individuals that they were going to have to do the handstand walk obstacle, which, I mean, if you haven't followed Crucible, you should kind of know that we did that last year, and teams and individuals both did it. Pegboards is something that I posted pictures of after we put them up. We put them up right before Crescendo as a way to kind of show teams that may come back, hey, these are up, they're on the wall, they're specifically in a lane, they're the exact same height. You guys should probably make sure that you're doing those. And then it just so happened at the games, they leveled up the version of pegboard. So them having legless pegboard is another way that, in my opinion, competitions, you can call them local competitions or semifinals, field level competitions, don't need to shy away from doing stuff like that. If equipment is an issue, I get it. But I think a lot of times certain movements people think are too hard, or they are only reserved for the games, or no, like you see the trickle down effect. If we are doing seated legless rope climbs at the games, then showing up and expecting every person on a team to do legless rope climbs, or expecting every individual to do 10 legless rope climbs, should not be something that you don't see. So a pool, yeah, you're not seeing that at semifinal level because most venues aren't going to have the same kind of pool and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the pool is something that I've wanted to do for a couple of years. I haven't really found the right spot. The programming hasn't really fit together to just throw a swim workout in. This year it did. Shout out to Josh Miller and Jamie Miller over at Spartanburg Athletic Club. They're going to let us use that site for one of the workouts. And I'm really excited about it. It kind of was also ironic that this year they used a pool at the games instead of swimming in the lake. And, I actually sent my event to Boz, and he was like, that's really creepy that's the workout that you're doing. And I was like, dude, I promise I've had this program for like 6 to 8 months. Like the skeleton of each year of Crucible gets programmed within a month or two after Crucible that year for the following year, because everything's fresh in my mind. I know what I didn't test. I know what I need to probably test the following year. And then there's some things that get changed all the way up until now, just little minor details. But yeah, I'm really excited about having a swim in a 7 and 6 scored event. As long as it's placed properly, I think it can work just as well as programming running or skiing or rowing as like a monostructural power output type test.
Is the team doing swimming as well, or is that just individual?
Team also. Everyone's doing swimming.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
I'm doing swimming as well, too.
That's right, Rick. I see that.
Oh yeah.
So what do you got? Your floaties? You got your floaties ready?
So I had to. I still need to get my my fit together for what I'm gonna. Because swimming has not really been my thing. So when we put out, I asked JR when I got this little camera housing, I was like, can I throw this out as like a teaser? And I guess it goes to show just how much I'm a camera nerd, because he was like, yeah, we need to let athletes know, whatever. And I posted up, and it was more of a clue, like a mystery than I thought it would be. In my mind, it's super obvious, but everybody's
Sure.
like, "You're
People
live
weren't aware.
streaming." No, I know. And then I actually felt a little bit more proud of myself that it was more of
Man,
like,
you guys need to get that event sponsored by Chubbies, and you need to be wearing a pair of Chubbies during that
listen,
event.
yeah, anytime somebody says Chubbies now, I'm gonna think of that Buttery Bro pants
That's right.
commercial thing. So
I love it. So JR, I am kind of going off of what you were saying earlier about a pool and semifinals and maybe like outside of the box stuff. I do kind of want to ask you this question while I have you on. I know we don't have that much more time, but I've asked like Hannah Hardy this question. I even asked Brian this question when he was here after Crescendo. What do you think about incorporating more outside of the box events into semifinals, like maybe one or two, such as a swimming event? I mean, most of these events are held at major cities. There's high schools everywhere. You could easily probably find a pool. Everybody goes there for the pool, comes back to the venue, and just continues on. Do you think it's that much of a logistical nightmare? Because in my mind, you know that there's going to be one swimming event and it's going to be a major event, and those are huge points that are up for grabs. And if it's not something that you're testing at a semifinal, I mean, you could get a freak athlete who can't even paddle across the water. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the chances of finding what you mentioned at the end there are very slim at the level of the games. But I do think that at a semifinal level, it would be really common to see someone that isn't a strong swimmer. If you're talking about a competition though with 6 to 7 events and we are deciding who goes to the CrossFit Games, I think it probably there are probably other things that could be tested in the position of a swim that you can make an argument for is more important. So,
well, didn't like strength and depth a couple of years ago? Didn't they do like a really long like row on the river or the channel?
Yeah, that was at sanctional when it was sanctionals.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, 1 year Wadapalooza was a sanctional, and you know, this year at Fittest of Cape Town, you know, they had a swim, and I think that's really cool. I push back with Taylor and with Brian on Sevon's show when we were talking about the semifinals programming, and my whole contention was, if you're telling these event organizers and programmers that they have the freedom to do what they want, let them have the freedom to do what they want. Mm-hmm. Don't tell them that we're going to program 2 of the workouts for you. These are your parameters for the other ones. And if they tell you swimming is reserved for the games and you want to program swimming, do it. You know, that's what those guys are paying for. And if I was programming a semifinal and I was given parameters and I contacted Versa Climber and I was like, hey, I know you guys have never been in the games, just like I contacted Flip Sled and said, hey, I know you guys have never been in the games, but I think that something like this would be really cool. We want to have a Versa Climber workout. And everyone was like, well, why are you using a Versa Climber? Well, because they didn't tell me I couldn't. And you're going to program ski or echo bike. If you want to program another different kind of monostructural movement, go ahead. If I were programming for streamlined semifinals, I think a swim would probably be a mistake. So I think as long as the freedom is there for each semifinal programmer to do their own thing, they need to be reviewed anyway.
Sure.
All the workouts. And if, you know, you're Copa Sur in Brazil and you have a super long endurance test that involves swimming that's very games-like, but one of the other semifinals' longest workout is 17 minutes, there's a problem there. Because then you really are in a 6 to 7 workout competition. You're probably weighing that skill of swimming perhaps a little too heavily to decide who gets to go to the CrossFit Games. I mean, my event's not sending anyone anywhere, but I think that swimming in the right capacity can really be used in the same way that other monostructural movements can. And I think that it's just a different apparatus. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it may be a huge flop, and I may just know, like, making people have a kettlebell standard so specific that I just never should do it again. And I mean, I learned that the first year, and I never would have known that had I not programmed that workout.
Sure. Yeah, dude, that was nuts.
Lots of pictures of those, Rick. We got those.
Yeah, for sure. All the no reps.
Do we know? Have you announced exactly how the swimming event is going to go down yet?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Just that it's going to be in a pool.
How long are we waiting until we get to the event, or what?
Yeah.
All right. But we do know that Boz thought it was somewhat creepy, so it's going to be somewhat
Water aerobics.
Water aerobics, somewhat similar to what we saw maybe at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, I will say that the swim workout is the first workout of the weekend for both teams and individuals. So there will be no fatigue prior to getting to see who can swim well and who can't swim as well.
Yeah, and the good thing is I think that Spartanburg Athletic Club is pretty much shallow the whole way across, correct? So chances of drowning are
I'm pretty sure it's 4 or 5 feet the whole way.
There you go. I know, right? You're in the clear, dude.
Just walk
Yeah,
across.
man.
You can throw those swimmies to the side.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I
Don't
think
need 'em.
Kevin and Hope are going to be shooting it too, and I'm pretty sure Kevin swam all the way up through high school, so
Yeah.
we can put him in the deep end if he wants to be.
There you
He
go.
did some
Yeah.
pictures at the AAYMCA
Yeah.
Right.
one.
Yeah, they looked fantastic. All right, so other than Crucible coming up, are y'all attending any off-season events this fall and winter?
Taylor's trying to get me to go to Rogue to shake hands and kiss babies, like he said, just to try to network a little bit, but also just to go and spectate. I mean, Jason will be there competing.
Sure.
And just to kind of go as a fan. I've never been there. It would be cool, but I'm a little hesitant to commit to anything like that. Within a month of Crucible, one way or the other, my brain is pretty fried, and I don't know. I'm already away from the family and away from mentally away from the family, even when I'm here physically around that time, more so than I want to be. So committing to something like that, I'm a little bit hesitant to do. Sevon has also talked about sending some of us out to Dubai, and I would not pass that up.
Oh no, that's a lifetime opportunity. You gotta go.
Yeah,
Not a chance.
I'll
If you
hide in
don't
the
go,
baggage
tell me to
kit.
hit me up. I'll go.
I'll hide in the
for
baggage
sure.
kit claim.
If he needs any, footage, taken of that trip, let me know. I know a couple people.
There you go. What about you? You got anything lined up, Rick?
I'm sure
Kind of
it'll be at
similar thing,
Wadapalooza.
but yeah. Say again.
I'm sure you'll be at Wadapalooza.
That'll be dope. I'm never turning that down.
Wadapalooza is a good time.
It is a good time. I mean, you really can't beat Miami at all. So hopefully I'll get to do that. I mean, to show my boys some love. Taylor's comp, Charlotte Classic's coming up, so
Yeah, okay.
I'll be actually like filming that, and so helping them with some content. But it kind of just like similar to JR. Those things sort of happen usually pretty close in time to when the event comes up, because it's just hard to plan sometimes. So this past year was Wadapalooza. Like I found out maybe a week before, so it was like a scramble to try to get everything together. But it works out. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah, and speaking of Taylor's competition, that anyone who's not doing Crucible that wants a high level individual competition that is more than one day, that's multi-day, that has difficult programming, you should absolutely think about going to Charlotte and doing Taylor's. It's super organized. I went last year just to spectate. I actually tested one of his individual workouts yesterday. So the programming is going to be top notch. The competition will be ran really smoothly. So if you're looking for another competition or just one to do before the end of this year, look into that one in November.
Awesome. All right. Well, sports has started. We've got Thursday night football, Rams versus the Bills. You guys gonna watch?
I'll turn it on. Neither one are really my team, so
Well, that's why I gotta get out of here, dude. I gotta go watch some sports.
Honestly, I could care less about the NFL. I'm much more into the college rivalries, and I know the transfer portal and stuff like that's made it more NFL like, but I still like my college stuff.
I love it all. I can't take my mind off of it. All right.
Zach, are you
go for it.
David, are you Michigan State or are you Michigan?
I'm Michigan. Yeah, that's where I
And
went.
Zach, what are you?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. Okay, gotcha. I knew it was a Midwest school. I just didn't know.
Well, Zach, you're a fan there because your granddad went there, right? He played there, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so me and Zach both did undergrad at Grand Valley State, which is a D2 school.
Right.
But then I did grad school at Michigan. So good times, man.
Lame.
Yeah, whatever. We'll see what happens this year. We'll see what happens, dude. I can't wait. It's gonna be good. All right, guys, this was our first live show. A little rusty, I think, but at least we had good looking dudes on.
Hey,
That was kind of my goal. I wanted to have some decent looking dudes, but not quite as good looking as Zach and I as to like steal the show. So it worked
fair
out.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But we'll do it again. We're gonna try to make most of the shows live from now on. Some of them will just be recordings, depending on who the guest is. But we'll get a little bit more consistent again this fall and get it going again. And I appreciate you guys taking some time out of the Thursday night to come on with us.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Anytime, man.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. I mean, we really should get back together the week of Crucible, maybe that Thursday night before it starts. I mean, Zach can come on. All the workouts will be out. He can kind of give his
talk about it.
What he thinks about the team workouts, and at that point, I'll be willing to talk about anything. People that want to comment and ask questions like, why did you choose this movement? Why did you choose this movement combination? Why did you make this workout easy? Why did you make this one too hard? All that kind of stuff.
Perfect. I love it. I won't be so concentrated on the number of viewers in this corner here. I'll be looking at you guys and paying attention. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you guys at the gym tomorrow.
All right, later.
All right, y'all heard it here on Apogee Fitness Podcast.